Hola, 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 hola. Vale.
Ahora. Okay, are you tired answering questions about Doom?
No, I answer questions about Doom all the time.
Okay, nice. Llevo desde los 15 años escribiendo sobre videojuegos. Hace poco más de un año que entré en Akihabara y por entonces nunca me hubiera imaginado que fuera a entrevistar a dos de las personalidades más importantes de la industria del videojuego. Teníamos la cita con John y Brenda a las 11 en el evento de Gameopolis, pero tuvimos un pequeño percance al entrar. Brenda no estaba, así que tuve que improvisar toda la entrevista, en un principio pensada para Brenda y John, en solo John Romero. Pero 5 minutos antes de acabar la sesión apareció Brenda, así que me dio tiempo a preguntarle algunas cosas que ya le había preguntado a John. Es por esto que vais a ver menos a Brenda que a John en el vídeo. What differences do you see between that rock and roll season in your life and today?
Geez. I guess the difference is that I was actually making Doom and Doom 2 and all those games back then, but was not going to conferences and wasn't like, the game was really popular, but we weren't really popular at the time. So now you go to a lot of conferences and get to meet a lot of people, and so it's different because now the game is still really popular. It took a long time to just really build up the huge following that it has. And so now I just do a lot more interviews about the game than I did back then.
Do you like the new Doom video games?
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Doom Eternal. It's really neat.
What is your favorite Doom?
It's tough to choose that because it's either Doom 1 or Doom 2. It'd be, Doom 1 because it was the very first one and it was super special when it first came out. And then Doom 2 because the double barrel was awesome and there was a lot more levels to play. So I can't really choose one. I like both of those first two.
I understand. I'd love to see a new game made by John Romero and John Carmack. So would you make a new game with them?
Maybe, but he's not interested in games anymore. So he's just interested in technology, and VR is where he's spent a really long time recently, probably about 10 years in VR. And I just make games all the time. It's constantly making games. So we haven't talked in a long time, and I'm not going to move to Texas. I'm never moving back to Texas, probably, or the United States. So it's probably not something that I would do.
So how long has it been since you last spoke to Carmack?
Oh, a long time. Probably. Well, we email every once in a while, but speaking probably 2002, maybe.
2002.
Yeah.
I born one year before.
Okay, so almost your whole life.
Después de haberle hecho algunas preguntas sobre esa etapa de su vida por la que es más conocido, Carmack y demás, quería saber algo más general sobre John. ¿Qué es lo que juega normalmente? Si tiene tiempo de jugar. Nos dio tiempo también a hablar un poco sobre indies y esta nueva era dorada. Así que os dejo con esta parte. Do you have time to play video games?
Yeah. We play. Well, the funny thing, we play Quake 1 in the office like every day. Everybody death matches in Quake 1, like at lunchtime. And then on Thursdays for hours, we do 1v1s in Quake 1. Also, we have a Minecraft realm. So lots of the people in the office play Minecraft. And we have a home server as well. So the kids and us, we all play Minecraft at home.
For now, what is your favorite game or your game of the year?
Jeez. I don't know if I even have a game of the year. I mean, Breath of the Wild was cool, but that wasn't this year. Haven't played any big games super recently. There was What Remains of Edith Finch and Firewatch, and played a bunch of that stuff. Probably last year. This year has mostly been. I've mostly played Doom and Quake. And probably Zelda earlier this year. played Drop 7, which is a game that a friend of ours made a while ago, but it's like we'll never stop playing it.
What would you tell the people who don't trust video games? I mean, old people that say video games are violent, violence in video games is bad for young people, you know.
I basically just tell them video games have ratings on them, just like movies. If you're old enough to play the game, then the game should be fine. You know, social media is worse than games, so people get depressed more from social media, and games provide an outlet for people to just release whatever.
What do you think about this new era of indie games?
Well, indie games have been around since the beginning of the industry. I mean, the whole game industry was founded on indie games. So publishers were originally just a couple people that had indies sending them games. So we're talking the late 70s and then the early 80s when the home computers exploded. It was all indies making games. There was no such thing as a really big, like even Electronic Arts, when it started, was contacting indie developers to have them send their games to them. So the industry has been founded on independent developers, and there's just more of them now. That's that's about it. But there's nothing that's changed other than there's more indies than there were that's founded the whole industry.
I think it's incredible. I mean, tools like Unity, Corona, they allow people to jump into games so much more quickly than they otherwise would have. So we're starting to see, and I should say there's lots of different means for people to distribute their games. So it's a great time. Like there's so many different games that we get to play right now, and I'm absolutely loving it.
What advice would you give to indie devs?
Focus on making a really great game, and if you want your game to be noticed, enter it in as many contests as you can to get publicity. Get yourself nominated for an award or even win an award, and you have tons of publicity at that point. So you can't do that unless you focus on making a really great game.
It depends on where they are in their career. I would say if they're just starting out, make something small. It's much easier to finish a small game. It's less scope. Starting out with something really big, you might end up having difficulty finishing it. So start small, keep your scope small.
How are the children? Donovan is developing something now?
No, Donovan developed Gunman Taco Truck a couple of years ago, and it's still doing all right. You know, Apple independently chose to feature it as a Games We Love for a whole week, 2 times. And then when they redid the App Store, they wanted to interview Donovan for a story on the App Store. This is like a year after the game came out. Then last year, they asked me if I would take Gunman Taco Truck and make it work really well for the iPhone 10 and the 10X Max, 10X, I guess the 10XS Max. And this is like on the App Store every month, there are 20,000 games put on the App Store every month. And Apple asked us to do a modification of Gunman Taco Truck. So that's kind of good news that Donovan's game is still in the minds at Apple. And one of our other daughters, Mesa, is a game designer and a writer, and she just designed a game called Cyber Squad for girls to teach cybersecurity. So it's about kids who are at school in normal situations, but then things start happening on their phones, and they got to figure out like whether they're getting phished for their passwords or if they're being cyberbullied or whatever. So she wrote that game, and it's done extremely well with the Girl Scouts of America.
Ahora tocaba hablar sobre su último proyecto, Empire of Sin. Ya pudimos ver algo en el E3, pero le queríamos preguntar algunas cosas más a John y a Brenda sobre el juego. And now let's talk about Empire of Sin. What about Empire of Sin? What is Empire of Sin?
Well, it's a game we've been working on for over 2 years with Paradox Interactive, and it's a 1920s Prohibition era strategy game where you play the game in real time until you get into combat, and then it's turn-based. And it's like, if you've ever played an Age of Empires game, you know, where you can choose how big you want the game to be and how many opponents you want, you actually get to do that in this game. You choose how many other crime bosses you want to fight against and how big of an area of Chicago you want to play in. And then the game creates the AI and the starting state for everybody. And you're basically just trying to destroy everyone and build a big empire through different rackets and alcohol and everything, and you know, lots of weapons.
John have told us some things about Empire of Sin, but if you want to tell us something more.
Well, I don't know what John said about Empire of Sin, but I can say that it's a game that I've wanted to make since I was, I don't know, a kid. It's an area I've been fascinated with Prohibition since I grew up. I grew up on the Canadian border, so the city where I grew up, Prohibition was the running of alcohol was really common, and so it's a topic that's fascinated me. Criminal networks have always fascinated me, so I'm thrilled we got a chance to make it.
Where did the idea come from?
Well, that's Brenda's idea. So my wife, Brenda Romero, she's wanted to make this game for over, probably about 20 years. She's had this idea, and she finally decided to pitch the idea at Gamescom to two companies, and Paradox is one of those companies, and they basically knew that they would really like the game, and they did. So they decided that they wanted the game, and that's what we've been working on,
I don't know. I mean, like, as a game designer, there's always 20 different ideas at any given time. But this is just something, this is a game I've wanted to play. I've wished a game like this existed. Fortunately, it didn't, so finally I got a chance to make it. And Paradox is the perfect publisher to do that, if you look at the games that they make.
And how many people are working on this project?
Geez, about 26 people, maybe 30, something like that.
What references have you taken to develop this game?
What references?
Yeah.
Oh, well, history. We've taken all of history.
Video games references.
Oh, video games? Well, it's very much like Civilization. It's like any RTS, and as far as balance is concerned, like a Age of Empires type thing. It's like how many other ones that we use as a reference? But it's a turn-based strategy game, so we haven't made anything like it before. Like Brenda makes RPGs, and so we kind of took her RPG. Like Jagged Alliance is a big influence. So take her RPG knowledge, and we played strategy games for decades, and decided that we're going to make one. And Paradox knows. Obviously, they know strategy inside and out, grand strategy and everything, and they know the game's turning out the way that they were hoping.
What references? Well, first and foremost, there's just a ton of history there. So we've done a lot of research in that. I like the criminal networks in the way that people act in The Sopranos. Obviously, Boardwalk Empire is also a huge reference, as is Goodfellas. A lot of the movies that are centered around that time period. The Untouchables, obviously, I have to add. But a lot of the movies and books and just history that centers in that time period.
And when are we going to know more about Empire of Sin?
Well, we announced it at E3, and then at Gamescom we're going to be showing more of a demo. That'll be journalists that do hands-on gameplay at Gamescom, and then PDXCon in September we're going to be showing it there as well, and then the game will release in spring 2020.
Y esto es todo, ya sabéis, like si os ha gustado, suscribiros al canal de Akihabara si no queréis perderos nada, y hasta otra. I have to ask, what kind of shampoo do you use?
I think it's called Sebastian. Yeah, Sebastian shampoo.
Okay, so thank you.
All right.